Okay, we are back. Prime Sports NASCAR. And what a crazy weekend at Pocono. And even though they want to end their coverage talking about how great and exciting the racing was at Pocono, wow, what a tremendous weekend. And you know what? Maybe it was for some of the other races, but when Denny Hamlin beats Kevin Harvick on Sunday and Kevin Harvick beats Denny Hamlin on Saturday, guys, I'm just not quite sure how exciting that was.
Sunday, the only thing I guess that helped that they started mid-pack and had to come forward, or I think they would have stayed there again on basically finishing their Saturday. If they started their Sunday, nobody would have touched them. But other than strategy, yeah, there wasn't much. A little bit left to be desired from Pocono, but I'm just glad we got them both over with instead of having to do it again in a couple of weeks. Just
that's true.
Fit them in both in the same weekend and
get
it over with.
Yes, but, we don't have to worry about Pocono for the rest of the year. Yes.
Oh, that is
CJ, and we talk about this every year. This is the one thing that sometimes we just forget until we watch the race at Pocono, and that is that, yes, strategy is so different here than any other racetrack. It just blows your mind when you're watching it because you don't know until usually about 40 laps to go in the race who's actually winning the damn thing.
Yeah, I was concerned for Hamlin. I didn't think that the time that he had built up, even with Harvick on Sunday, I should say, the time that he had built up with Harvick going through traffic was going to be enough for him. But as you watched it all play out, he ended up coming out maybe 100 yards or so ahead. And then, he eased away and that was it. And it was a carbon copy finish of the day before where Kevin Harvick, I thought Hamlin was closing the gap on him for a slight minute. But then it stabled out right around a second and it stayed there for the rest of the laps. So, yeah, so much room for strategy because it's such a big, long lap and you can get in and out of the pits and tires don't seem to matter. It seems to be all about track position and whether or not you've got enough fuel to make it to the end. And that's what we saw Saturday and Sunday.
And look, there's luck that has to do with it. Harvick talked about the strategy at the end of the race, what they were going for, and it didn't work, and it worked for Hamlin. But it does, I don't know. It's kind of weird for me, Eric, because it's almost like it's the only race where you feel like you are putting together like a real game plan, like a football game plan. And I just don't know why, especially how good some of these teams are and some of these crew chiefs are. I just don't know why more of them, like why did it seem like only Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, that those two teams knew what they were doing, especially when they got teammates. Maybe Kyle Busch and Ryan Blaney could have had something if they didn't wreck because they were in a different sequence, maybe. But it just looked like there were only two drivers, two teams, two crew chiefs that knew the best strategies, and that just, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to someone like me.
I think a big part of it is those are the two arguably top driver crew chief pairings right now in the sport. I think they just trust each other, get each other, know what each other needs. I think you see that overall in the season. That's why they're the top two right now. But I think it laid a blueprint out for Indy this weekend because Indy's going to be pretty much the same way. They run these tracks like a road course. And what I mean by that is instead of starting at lap one and trying to figure out your fuel strategy, because like CJ said, tires are pretty well non-existent. You mean they're there, but they're not a problem. You need to find out, you go backwards then. So you take out the overtime just because you don't know if it's going to come there. So you just go from the end of the race and go backwards and see when can I pit, but maximize my second to last run and the last run to where it's going to coincide and put myself in a position to win. Eric Almirola, we saw, was on the wrong side Saturday. He would have won that race. And this is where the TV coverage, and I get it's tough with him not being there and the data that you get, because I was almost yelling at the TV because I talked my wife in, and when Eric Almirola was like 50 to 1 in like stage one, like, hey, let's throw like $10 his way. And it almost worked. Yeah. I was yelling at the TV, like, what is he doing? Everybody's taking no tires or fuel only, or 2 tires or fuel only. Why is he taking 4 tires? And he find out at the end on the Zoom call that, hey, our strategy was to run that second to last stint as long as you could, which means we were on pit road longer because we got to get the car full, which we might as well change 4 tires while we're sitting there. Then Denny Hamlin reverses it on Sunday, saying, well, maybe I'll go longer and just take a short amount of fuel at the end. And he was only on pit road or his stall for 4 seconds. That was the winning move. So I think you can combo both of those, and everybody's now got a blueprint for Indy. So I think that's why you're going to see the cream rise to the top on Sunday, because now we've got 2 races of a blueprint on how to strategize your way. All
right. Well, Eric believes 100%, or I should say, I think 80% in Hamlin and Harvick will do it again at Indy. But CJ, you believe 0% that is going to happen. I haven't even had time to make my picks yet. I'll go over. I do have an idea of who I'm going with, and I actually is leaning towards Eric's side, is at least putting a few bucks on both of those drivers, try to get my money back, even though Eric's going all out on both of them. Why did you decide not to go with either driver, TJ?
They were actually both in my dry run picks.
Okay.
And then I ended up taking them out because I just wanted to be more aggressive. I didn't want to just get my money back. I'm in the hole. I want to start going with put more on the guys where I thought could come up and get a different kind of finish. And going back to back is really tough.
That's
Saturday,
true.
Sunday, they effectively one race to me. So heading into Indianapolis, you would have either Harvick or Hamlin. Whoever wins, I would consider them a back-to-back winner. It's tough to do. I didn't want just my money back, so I wanted to actually make some earnings, get out of the hole that I'm in. So I decided not to go with either one.
All right.
And that's really the only reason, because I agree. I think one turn at Pocono is modeled after the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So now we've got 4 of those same turns here coming up on this weekend. And Eric's exactly right. The fuel strategy and the way that the teams go about approaching this race is going to be exactly what we saw last week.
But this isn't really, CJ, what we want to see. I mean, all right, maybe.
No, not at all.
I mean, I can understand if you want one race a year where you just have some sort of strategy. Okay, let's find out who's the strategy geniuses, in this particular setup. But 3 races in a week, it's the same thing. Nobody wants to see races determined by fuel mileage strategy and when you're going to pit. I mean, that's just, come on. Nobody wants to see this.
Yep, I agree. We want to see everybody going as fast as they possibly can for as long as they can, and let the fastest car win. Let it be a door-to-door battle, kind of like Clint Boyer coming down to the finish line at Pocono that one time. But yeah, it's just the nature of these 2 kind of tracks. They're difficult to pass on. They're not the traditional high-banked ovals that we're used to. It takes a little bit of finesse, and plus the race distance plays into it. So I think the best thing we had going for us at Pocono, number one, we get both of them out of the way in the same weekend, but they also, neither one was as long as they otherwise would have been if they were on last year's calendar. So we've got to sit through 400 miles here at the Brickyard. Hopefully it'll be exciting. Hopefully some unexpected things will happen. But I have a feeling it's probably going to come down to cautions and wrecks to be the exciting thing this weekend.
Yeah. And of course we had more rain on Saturday and Sunday. When are they going to learn? No, I mean, we know it rains every year at Pocono. I don't know if you can move the date. And if you're not going to move the date, then can you please, even if it's just one race a year, make sure the race at Pocono starts at 12 o'clock or something. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
afternoon. No, go ahead.
I heard one of the teams say on the radio or something that if you look around the scenic area around the track and it's green and looks like real foresty and pretty, that means there's usually a lot of rain that falls in that area. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, maybe we should move the start time up because that track doesn't have lights. So they got lucky because that second race almost didn't even finish before dark. And how embarrassing would that have been? Like, well, let's call it. We can't see.
Now, I know it's politics.
Which would have thrown a wrinkle.
We all know it's politics of why they race here at Pocono and then they do it twice in one weekend and so forth. But again, why not? Seriously, I mean, I know what they probably are looking at metrics on ratings, and we have to start later, and they want to be out and enjoy the daytime. They have done so many things over the last few months to change because of the virus. So what? So instead of then thinking, well, hey, this isn't a regular summer because people are sick of staying home, or let's say that they're out and they're enjoying themselves and so forth. So I don't really look at it as a big deal of whether or not you want to start the race at 12 or 4. It's interesting because the golf was also rain delayed. So you on Sunday, I think. So you had rain delay golf, rain delay NASCAR, and nothing was going on in sports. Nothing. Both events were rain delayed, and you're just sitting there, and you got nothing going on. And it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. We're getting late. It's like everybody, hey guys, we got to get up in the morning. It's Monday. It's work time. I don't understand this theory that you can't start at 12 o'clock. NFL, the most popular sport in the world, plays a majority of their games at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't think they get the whole. I get at first. I get why they do it for the West Coast.
I know. I'm so sick of hearing that crap too.
Yeah, I am too. Because it's like if it worked, wouldn't the ratings be higher? I think they're tuning in less. It's just like, come on. The West Coast is in their own mindset too. They used to like to wake up and eat breakfast.
That's right.
NASCAR,
Wouldn't you?
To ruin their day.
I would.
Yeah. First time, it was a few Novembers ago. We were out there for like around Thanksgiving time for a Colts Cardinals football game, and my wife's uncle, he's a big Michigan football fan. And at 9 a.m., he's like, "Hey, let's go watch the Ohio State game in a bar." I'm like, "At 9 in the morning? Like your bars are open at 9 in the morning?" He goes, "Oh yeah, people out here, most of them are displaced East Coasters. Yep. Yeah, we want to wake up early." So yeah, what I would like to see, again, we're all doing all these changes. Why can't they start at noon? Stream it on their own website where we can watch it for us diehards that want to watch it. Tape delay it for later if you need to, for God's sakes, and then see if it. Because if you look at the ratings, which I saw just came out, Saturday's rating and Sunday's were about even. One was on Fox Sports 1 on Sunday, and the other one was on regular Fox on Saturday, and neither one of them trumped the other. So I would like to just see them start back at noon, try it online, see what happens, tape delay it later for your West Coast viewers that probably won't watch anyways, and see which gets more ratings. Plus you can control it on your own website. So again, we're doing all these changes. Maybe that's a change we can get just to see, because we're going digital in this world anyways. I mean, maybe we go more digital everybody's streaming, it seems like, TV packages anyway. So let's stream a race and see where we go.
All right. We have 5 minutes to run through some of these topics, and then we're going to wrap up with the Brickyard 400, also known as the Big Machine Vodka 400. But Brickyard 400 sounds good to me. All right. Let's talk about whether or not, CJ, you think this was a success, and if so, or if not, whether or not other tracks should be thinking about having a race on a Saturday and a race on a Sunday.
I think it was a success. It was a novelty item, something back to back. It gave a little bit of intrigue with the reset starting order and the inversion of the top 20. Also forced people to take care of their cars maybe a little bit more on Saturday if they'd have to start at the back if they ended up ruining it. But even with that, you had a couple guys that did start at the back because they had problems on Saturday, and they plowed their way right through to the front again. So I think in general it was a success. I would like to see it happen at one of the other more entertaining tracks, like one of the 1.5 mile ovals that we go to twice a year. I'd like to see both of those condensed down into one, just to see, what the difference would be on a more exciting track. But overall, I think it was a success. I think they'll claim it as a success, and they'll definitely do it again.
What do you think, Eric?
I agree. I would think like Michigan, Dover, Kansas, some tracks like that I guess Kansas is in the playoffs, but if you're a non-playoff track and you have 2 races in a year, to me, move to a doubleheader. Save us a weekend from going there twice and watching the same thing twice, because it at least gives you strategy.
Yeah, do that at Darlington.
It's a little bit of entertainment. Yeah, I would like to see Darlington twice.
Or Martinsville.
They have one date.
Tracks that, like Pocono, if you're going to go to these tracks twice, go to those places twice for over the weekend.
Yep, I think it proved it's better that way instead of waiting like they tried with Charlotte and Darlington early in the year with a Saturday or Sunday and then coming back like Wednesday. I like it just Saturday, Sunday, getting it out of the way, getting out of town and going somewhere else. Because I think that too shortens the schedule. And we don't have to go deep into November anymore if you take some of these weeks off. So yeah, I think it was a win.
All right. And then what about practice? Because that's the thing, is that even though, we thought that they were going to practice, Saturday's race would be like a practice for the drivers on Sunday. And really, that just didn't happen because we had the same two drivers winning, coming in first or second. So was that just an anomaly because it was Pocono? Or what do you think of? Because I know there's a lot of talk going on about these drivers are starting to complain. They would like more practice time. Well, hey, you know what? We understand why they want more practice time, but as we've said for the past few weeks, that's not better for the sport.
No, I agree. I think the one person you'd point at from a practice perspective would be Kyle Busch. He's probably been the most outspoken about it. He's probably been the one that's been struggling the most without it. He would have had probably about the same day, maybe a spot or two higher. We don't know because he ended up colliding with Ryan Blaney there. But really at this point, we know that the practice isn't making the show more exciting. It's making it more boring, actually. So I say we get rid of practice altogether. Let's do the entire field as for qualifying, just a draw, period. Not just the top 20
why not?
or top 12.
Let's see Ryan Preece at the pole, and let's see all sorts of cars that have no chance in the top 10 because all hell will break loose.
Yep.
Exactly right. Yep. Try these things. It'll be more exciting. Shorten the races a little bit. I think 350 to 400 is probably 325 to 400 is probably the right about the sweet spot in terms of distance. Keep it at that. Do 2 races in a weekend at these non-playoff tracks, more exciting tracks, and I think you got a winner. You got some momentum behind it.
Yeah, and if you do it by random chance, what you could do is if you let's say Kyle Busch ends up 37th or something like that. Well, then you have some sort of stipulation that you can only be like in the 30s so many times, just because you don't want to be starting up by luck in the 30s all year long. But there's ways to make it fun and more interesting, and that's definitely part of it. Quickly, what's the latest on Denny Hamlin and Richard Childress Racing, Eric?
It was not Richard Childress, Hendrick. So he tweeted or Instagrammed or something a video of him on a boat with Rick Hendrick and Jeff Gordon during the week, and it's like, well, why the hell is a rival driver with the rival team owner on a lake? Riding a boat going 120 miles an hour. And then you start connecting dots, and he was asked that in his Zoom, and he admitted he was with them. They called and asked him. And you got to look, the 48, Jimmy Johnson's, that car is open next year. And the two owners of that car, Rick Hendrick and Jeff Gordon, they're co-owners of that car. And you start connecting dots, like, why was Denny Hamlin with them when the car is open? And they called Denny to come on a boat. Denny said they were just bored, had nothing better to do, and called him, which seems really odd. Just odd timing. Toyota wants to keep – Eric Jones has been talking with them. They want to keep him. Christopher Bell's staying. They don't have any – Levine Family Racing, who Bell's driving for, they don't know if they're going to be able to continue on past this year. Finances are hitting them hard. They're a smaller team, so if they shut down, where's Christopher Bell going to go? I think they know Hendrick, Penske, Stewart-Haas. These teams are after one of these guys if they cut them loose. So is Denny Hamlin one of the best drivers of the season so far? The odd man out.
That's crazy.
Granted, that to me.
Well, didn't we just have this with Martin Truex Jr.?
Yeah, we did. So this is something to watch. Is it a fluke? Could have been, but it just seems very odd. I just don't see like a NBA or NFL player being a free agent at season's end, going during the season, having an MVP season, just hopping on a boat with a rival team owner and hanging out with them.
That's another part of the business that just has to stop. It has to. You need loyalty to some respect. And we've talked about it. It's just crazy. But hey, if it could happen to Truex, that was a sponsorship thing though with Truex, right?
Yeah, it was that the sponsor left, and Furniture Row again was shutting the doors. They couldn't run further, so Toyota didn't want to lose him. But you got to look too. Hamlin, Truex, and Kyle are mid 30s and early 40s, all three of them. Toyota doesn't want to lose. Bet kind of bet on a short window
Yeah.
and let future go. So I get what
Yeah, but
they're
don't you want to win
trying to do.
championships? So you
Yes.
keep
And who's to
Hamlin.
say?
He's not going
Yep.
anywhere for a couple of years, right? I mean, Denny Hamlin's not ready to hang it up in the next 2 or 3
No,
years.
you wouldn't think. And Hendrick's got all those car dealerships. He could offer him an ownership stake. There's a little more Hendrick could probably offer, but I thought it was interesting too. And Hamlin's crew chief, they were asked about their relationship, and he said why Hamlin's better, and he singled out Eric Jones and Christopher Bell and these guys of maturity. So
Nice
it's
coincidence.
like, whoa, wait. Yeah, this is a day after this whole thing started hitting. It's come to a head. So I think there's something to watch there. I hate to read too deep into things, but that's a little weird. That's a weird timing. So who knows? Could be a weird, silly season still.
All right, CJ, we're going to go over your picks first, then we'll let you go, and then I'll wrap up with Eric. So you decided to spray your picks around a little bit more than Eric did, but your top plays, apparently, from my glimpse, you've got Kyle Busch, and then you went with the three Penske drivers, Logano, Keselowski, and Blaney. You also have Truex and Elliott in there. But Kyle Busch was another driver that I was thinking about too. Now, I'm not going to go hard at Kyle Busch and Hamlin, so I've got some thinking to do because Kyle's done probably as good as anybody at this track over the last several years. But the question is he ready to win? You believe he is?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, he was a top 5 car in Pocono, I think, with a couple of tweaks. That's kind of like 2 days worth of practice for him heading into this weekend. So I think he just needs a couple tweaks on the strategy, keep his nose clean, not collide with anybody on his way around. And, 3 poles and 2 wins here in the past and in the last, 5-6 races or so. It's pretty remarkable. So he's got this track down, and I think he's got enough momentum behind him. It's just making those last final adjustments that will get him into victory.
All right, now as far as the Penske drivers are concerned, you got Keselowski, who is 6-1. He's got a win and a runner-up in his last 3 races here, wrecked last year. And then you have Logano, who is also 6-1. I'm a little bit surprised, though, Logano is 6-1. I know he's been pretty good here, but he's never won at the Brickyard. And he's just not racing well. So I'm a little bit surprised that he's 6-1, but maybe Blaney will help to augment those odds there because he's 11-1, and that's because of his career. He doesn't have as good as experience results as the other two, but we know Blaney is racing better than Logano right now.
Blaney will absolutely get his best performance at this track this weekend. There's no doubt in my mind. He's been doing it at all these tracks so far this season. He's not slowing down, so he's an obvious pick. I think Keselowski, last week at Pocono, Keselowski was strong. Again, a different strategy, and he probably would have been up there battling with them. And then Logano, he won a stage, right? He had a couple of problems, had a tire issue, but he came out and he won a stage, and he's been doing that consistently every year. He's just now got to figure out kind of what Martin Truex's issue was at the beginning of the year, where he was fast at the beginning and then faded at the end. Logano's got the wins under his belt already this season, but he's definitely speed still too. It's just a matter of extending that throughout the race. So I think Fords are going to be strong. They have been strong for the past couple of years here at Indianapolis. They've been strong with Harvick, last weekend, Keselowski, Logano, Blaney, etc. And I didn't want to go with the 2 favorites with the Harvick and Hamlin going back to back. So therefore you got all 3 Penske guys right there.
Yeah, and you also went Truex and Elliott, and I kind of like Elliott this week for a little bit myself, but I was surprised that you went with Truex. Even though they're racing better than they did, it seems like earlier in the year. He only has 1 top 5 in 15 races at the Brickyard.
Yep. And for him, it's just more a matter of surprise. There have been a couple times this season where I didn't really expect much out of him. He had been having a couple of quiet weeks and then comes out and happens into a win. I could very much see that happening here this weekend. He's a closer teammate now with Kyle Busch, who's got all the success here. Saw Hamlin really excel last week at Pocono. Maybe this week it's Truex's turn. I just wanted to hedge against the surprise there with him more so than anything.
And then your 2 long shots, Bell at 80-1 and Dillon at 100-1. Why'd you go with those 2?
Yep. So Dillon's actually got 2 top 10s. He was 12th here he's last year, and he's running stronger this year than he has in pretty much his entire season. So I think he's a good play. And then Bell, look at where Bell was before he ended up crashing in Pocono. He had a great result, arguably a very good weekend despite that issue. So I think he's one that can come out and be a surprise as well. So just threw a couple bucks their way to see if we could get something that hits. Who knows? Maybe it rains. Maybe he has some crazy cautions and you get a surprise winner. Wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities, certainly at this track.
Absolutely. All right, rotowire.com. What are you going to be working on for this week?
This week, we've got previews for fantasy racing coming out on rotowire.com for the Cup race and then also the Busch race, It's the Xfinity series now. Gosh, how many years has it been since it was the Busch series?
I would say I like it.
Bring it back.
Wow. That's where I come from. And then we'll have the race recap up sometime on Monday after the race, maybe even Sunday night if it goes well. We'll see. All on rotowire.com.
Excellent. Thanks, CJ. We'll talk to you next week.
Great. Thanks for having me.
You got it. All right, CJ Radoon, and you can check out his work there at rotowire.com. I'm just, let's see. Now, let me find out between the two of you guys, likely, similar picks. And the only pick that is going to go down for all three of us this week is going to be Ryan Blaney. Big surprise, right?
Yeah, big surprise. Yeah, Blaney I was shocked he was given the odds that he was. And I
still no respect.
I think they're looking at past, but they're not looking fully at past because, yes, he was 11th and 7th his last two, but he ran really well those 2 years. He was up front, battling for stage wins, kind of the top 5 there towards the closing laps of each of those races. So I was shocked he was where he was, so that's why I went his way, just because of out of the Penske's, I feel like he's going to be their best shot at winning.
Okay. And what about the starting position? When are we going to get news on that?
Usually Thursday. Yeah, okay. Usually Thursdays they do that.
And what do you think about how important that's going to be at this track? Again, with the similarities to Pocono, if you take a look at it, 7 of the last 8 winners started in the top 10, 3 on the pole. But the key for that is because the Brickyard, just like Pocono, doesn't give you a lot of great racing. So when you practice and qualify well at these tracks, usually you're going to race well at these tracks. And so that's why these trends about starting position don't mean as much. And I think that's the case here. I wouldn't really worry if Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin were starting 13th or 14th. I just don't think it's going to matter. If you have a really good car, you'll find your way to the front.
Yeah, and they'll start in the top 12 anyways. That's why I feel this weekend starting, 4 of the last 7 came from the front row, and they're doing it by owner's points. So the top 12 are going to start in the top 12, which passing is already hard at Indy. So you're going to have the fast cars on the season up front. And to me, I would rather see Hamlin and Harvick share row 6 than row 1. Let's hope that happens. But I think they'll find their way to the front anyways. I think people saw what they did pit strategy last weekend. So you might see them pit. It might be one of those monkey see, monkey do. You're going to start seeing people just try to stay on their strategy. And you might have some of the guys like a Christopher Bell, somebody starting in the back have to go off sequence, but that's what you're going to get. That's going to string out the field, and you're going to see a lot of green flag running. So that's why I think the advantage goes back to the guys starting up front for this weekend.
Okay. So let's go into, we'll talk about those two top drivers then between Hamlin and Harvick, if you had to pick one, because you have the same amount of money on both of them. So let's see, 40 each, right? So yes, out of your 100 to invest in each week. And if you take a look at it, Harvick, it's interesting because Harvick has 2 wins at this track, both from the pole. So he's been on the pole 3 times at this track. He's got 2 wins. The other one was back in 2003. He's the defending champ of the race. He has 6 top 10s, including, 6 straight top 10s, including 3 top 5s, and the win last year. And he dominated. He led 118 laps. Meanwhile, Hamlin has been 6th or better in 5 of his last 6 races at the Brickyard, even though he's only led 55 laps during that time. So he hasn't really dominated with the laps, but he's had good results. But the key difference is Denny Hamlin has never won at the Brickyard. He's 0 for 14.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hamlin. I just think he's quicker right now. Harvick, towards the end of the Saturday race, I think they had another lap or 2. Hamlin was going to get him. Hamlin had a quicker car. Toyota seemed to have a quicker car at Indy in general, hence Kyle Busch's domination. Denny's won practically all the crown jewels but this one. He wants it bad. This is his best shot. Like you said, he's been in the top 6 in 5 of his last 6 tries.
And he's got better
5
odds.
top 5s, better odds, 5 top 5s in his last 6 on the season. 3 wins since the coronavirus break ended. Granted, Harvick's got 3, but I just feel like Hamlin's got a leg up on him a little bit right now with the speed, the strategy. So I'd give a slight advantage towards Hamlin this weekend.
All right. If you had to choose between Kyle Busch, Keselowski, and Logano, which way would you go? Kyle's 5-1. Keselowski, Logano are at 6-1. Kyle has 11 top 10s and 15 career races here. So that's fantastic. He also has 5 top 5s and 2 wins. He's led 282 laps in the last 5 races with 2 wins and 3 poles. Last year, he dealt with an engine issue, so can't really worry about that. Keselowski, as we mentioned him before, again, a win and a runner-up in his last 3 races. And we also talked about Logano, even though he's never won. He has 6 top 10s in his last 7 races there with 4 top 5s and 2 runner-ups. So he's done just about everything but winning. So how would you go 1, 2, 3 with those 3 drivers?
I'd go Kyle just because I feel like Pocono last weekend, he was good. The second race, he was a top 3. He probably have been right there with Hamlin at the end if he wasn't wrecked. He even said in his interview, look what happens when you get a little practice time, alluding to what he did on Saturday. So there's a lot they can take over from Pocono to Indy. So I feel like he's going to have a good car. And like you said, he blew an engine last year, and the 34th place finish in 2017 was when he wrecked with Truex, and those two were restarting on the front row past the halfway point, and they wrecked in turn 1 together. So I feel like Kyle's going to have a good car. The Toyotas were the best in the tunnel turn at Pocono last week, and according to the data, and the tunnel turn is like Indy. That's that one turn at Pocono is like all four at Indy. So I feel like Kyle's going to be better than the 2 Penskes. The Penskes they're notorious for going off strategy at Indy. So I think you'll see it be a completely different strategy as Kyle. I would say Keselowski would be second out of that group, 2 top 2s in his last 3. Last year he was running well before he wrecked in turn 2. He's just been solid. He's just been a top 10 car. I don't like the speed out of him yet, but I think he can strategize his way to a win.
Which is already done twice this year?
Twice, yeah. So if he gets lucky at the end, Brickyard late race caution seems to breed cautions, and it's all calamity from there, and he could find his way to the front at that point. And then Logano 3rd out of 3. Yes, he's been good at the Brickyard lately, but he's got 1 top 5 in his last 11 races on the season. I talked to him last Thursday or Friday. I can't believe now all these days are running together now. On a Zoom call, and he mentioned that the lack of practice time is really hurting him because the crew chief change. He said that these are the first trips to these racetracks with not Todd Gordon, that's his old one, Paul Wolf. Whereas like Denny Hamlin's Rising, his crew chief said why they're so good this year is because this is their second trip to these racetracks. They already know what to do. And I think it's hurting somebody like Logano in their setups. They're not coming out and finishing races like they should be. So, yes, he's got all the top 5s at Indy, but he's got 1 the last 11 on the season. I put more stock on that side.
Oh, yeah. I mean, do you think it's really the crew chief switch, even though it didn't seem to bother Logano earlier in the year, but for whatever reason after the break, do you think, I mean, Blaney has gone one way, Logano's gone the other way, and that was a big crew chief swap. It's definitely benefiting the driver we figured it would benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he mentioned that he said, look, the first 4 races we practiced. That's why we looked good. We won. If you throw in the duel that he ran, he goes, that's 5 races at the start of the year to the pandemic break. We won 3 of them. We had practice. We qualified. I knew we were communicating well. And then you get to this. He's like, there's not much you can do between races. You're not meeting in person. It's just Skype or texting or calling, and you can't go to the garage. So the first time you're seeing your crew chief from the last race is on pit road. He said, we haven't really worked together before, where Blaney and Logano's old crew chief, Todd Gordon, they seem to be meshing. They seem to be getting what Gordon's giving Blaney what he needs, and Logano and Paul Wolf are having a hard time figuring out what Logano needs. So I think that's why you're seeing cars get better as races go on, because they have that conversation. They already know, like Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick been together since 2014. Hamlin and Chris Gabehart, they get along real well. This is their second year, but they're thriving. Eric Jones, I mean, he's been running well. He just doesn't have the finishes, but him and his crew chief have been together. So Chase Elliott, Alan Gustafson, they've been together for a while. I think you're going to start seeing that now until we get to a practice, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think more racetracks now are seeing the value without it. I think we might see more Xfinity Cup doubleheaders, because why not? If a fan's going to show up to a track on a race day on a Sunday and have to wait till 3:00 for to get a race started, why not give them something beforehand?
Absolutely.
It'll take practice away. So I don't think this is going to get rectified till at least August from all the schedules I've seen as far as the weekend schedule. So Logano's going to have a hard time figuring this out. Yes, they had Pocono to look off of, but so did everybody else. So I don't think you're really gaining much from Pocono to Indy for a team that needs the gain like that. So that's why I put him 3 out of 3.
Do you think that there's going to be some of the owners that have a lot of pull who might really balk at this situation that the fans seem to prefer? And I'm sure there are other drivers who prefer it too, especially some of the younger ones. But what do you think? Do you think that there is going to be a consensus that this is the way to go in the future, or will we have some of those old school thinkers, especially the ones that have teams like Kyle Busch, or maybe even, Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski? And hey, you know what? The more we know, if our top drivers, these are my top teams, and if I can get more practice time out of them, my teams are going to be better. I don't care about the other teams. I don't care about the little teams, the little guys. I want to squash them like bugs, kind of deal. So do you think which do you think is going to win out?
I think the no practice will win out, because you got to look some of these owners like Gibbs. Yes, Kyle on one side isn't strong, but Denny Hamlin on the other is strong. Stuart Haas, Kevin Harvick strong. Eric Almirola's picking up. Penske, there's smart people over there. They'll eventually figure it out. What I think you're going to see is how we saw all these off-season crew chief swaps. I think you might see less of that now. I think you might need to have more time to gel. So I think you might see teams stay status quo, which is good for employment. I think the owners like the bottom line. I think they like to see that. Look how much money it's saving them from the cost of travel.
Yeah.
You don't need hotels. You don't need the food,
yep.
Tire bills, fuel. You don't have to prepare a backup car, because at the end of the day, the biggest factor why we're not practicing is they don't want to bring backup cars, because even like some people have said, well, why don't they just practice 20 minutes in the morning before the race? Well, you still have to have a backup car. What happens if somebody wrecks?
Sure.
Because they're going to push the issue. So if you prepare a backup car, you need more hands on deck. You need more people in these shops working, which we've seen a couple shops have coronavirus cases. So they're going to limit even more in the shops. You don't need people at the track working close proximity preparing a backup car. So I don't think we're going to get practice. I think the tracks are going to see, well, why would I open my gates for 3 days and only have one of them be or two of them with the Xfinity race, which never draws a huge crowd anyways? Why don't I just move the Xfinity race to right before the Cup race, have the same TV network airing them already there, and just have a one-day show and maximize the fans? So, no, I think this is here to stay. I think there's enough out there that don't want practice that I think
good.
I would be shocked if this changes the other way.
All right, quickly, Truex Elliott, 11-1 Truex, 12-1 Elliott. I said before, I'm thinking about taking Elliott this week. He's never led a lap at the track, but Elliott's a really good driver, and I would expect that maybe this is going to be a bounce-back race for him.
Yeah, I'd go Elliott. Yes, he's got 4 finishes of 15th or worse in 5 tries, but he's running better now than he has in the past. Chevrolet, we know they've got more speed. They just got to figure out the finishes thing. But Elliott looked good in Pocono. He couldn't help the penalties that they had during the race on Saturday, and then on Sunday they have a clean race, and he finishes in the top 5. So Brickyard's been one to award a big-name driver. You don't see a lot of flukes here. Yes, McMurray and Paul Menard's won twice, but you also look at the other winners. They're all most of them are Hall of Famers. So Chase Elliott will find his way. He's going to start up front. Truex he's got 1 top 5 in his last 5 races on the season. I kind of feel like he's in the Kyle Busch rut. He just needs a good solid top 5, top 10 just to move on. Where Chase Elliott, we know they're aggressive. We know they'll play around some pit calls. So, yes, I would say Chase Elliott out of those two.
Okay, now you got Byron and Boyer at 22, Jones 25, Kurt Busch Johnson 28. Out of those drivers, now Jones, he's got the 2 wrecks and a runner-up, and then he's coming off a third-place finish on Sunday. Boyer has back-to-back fifth-place finishes here, and is coming off back-to-back top 10s at Pocono. Byron's coming off a fourth-place finish at this track last year and a seventh-place finish on Sunday. So that's probably where I would lean towards is deciding on those 3 as opposed to the old guys, Busch, Kurt, and Johnson. And I might actually lean towards William Byron maybe this week. But it might be between Byron and Jones because it does look like Eric Jones is starting to pick things up.
Yeah, and we know, obviously, like we talked earlier, he's in a contract situation. So what bigger way to get your contract extension than win the Brickyard? And even fans there or no fans, you win at Indy, you're going to get a contract extension. So he's starting to pick it up. That's the group that I wish I have a strong feeling Hamlin or Harvick's going to win. That's why I went so much their direction. But I wish I had more money to bet on those because that's the intriguing group right there. Yeah. Byron, I'd lean towards 4 top 11s in his last 5 on the season. He was 4th in this race last year. He won the Xfinity Series race there a couple of years ago. He's good at Indy. I like Byron. He ran well in Pocono. Eric Jones right there. Clint Boyer, the 2 fifth-place runs at Indy. He was strong in both of those. Ran great in the stages. Pitch strategy ruined him from winning. So I think he'll be there. He's got 3 top 6s in his last 5 overall here. So another one I throw out is Almirola. He's 40-1.
Oh yeah, once you get a little bit further back, Almirola, I agree with you. It's not that he has anything at the track going for him, but you had to be impressed with what happened to him over the weekend, and that's now 4 straight top 5s.
Yeah, longest streak of his career. He's got the confidence. He was good in the tunnel turn. Like he said, his best turn at Pocono was the tunnel turn, which is like Indy. Kevin Harvick as a crew chief, it seems to be working well on his side. So I would say your sleepers, guys to look at, Jones, Boyer, Almirola, and Byron. You can't go wrong with either of those this weekend.
What about Newman? Because he has 8 top 12s in his last 9 races here at the Brickyard. He's got a win back in 2013, and he has 3 straight top 10s if you look at it. And he's 80-1. That's a big number. If you're looking at really big long shots, I think Newman might be the guy that you, or at least fantasy, I would take a look at him.
For fantasy, yeah. Unfortunately, or fortunately, how you look at it, there's no rain in the forecast this weekend here in Indy. It's just going to be dry and hot. I don't think they've got the speed to hang around. The only way they're going to get there is going to be kind of like he did in the first, the Saturday race at Pocono, where they used pitch strategy. And look, there's Newman leading, but it's not going to rain. It's not going to be a rain-shortened race. Does he have the speed to run close enough to the front to run a stint longer, to short pit another stint, and stay on the lead lap? I'm not sure that could happen. So was he a strategy, like a fantasy play? Absolutely for those odds. But he doesn't have the speed, I feel like, that's going to hang around the front to win. So 80-1 is probably about right for him to win. If there was a potential of rain, something changes between now and then, throw some money his way because we know that's what they're going to do. Because he's not going to make the playoffs on points. He's got to figure out a way to get a win and stay in the top 30. And Indy's a track that can do that. So we know he's going to try to strategize his way there. But I just, unless a flukish caution comes, which we've seen few and far between this year, I just don't see it.
All right, racereviewonline.com. What are you working on for the week?
A lot of previews and features because, one, this is my home race. It's going to be weird not being there this weekend. But IndyCar is going to run that Saturday, this Saturday on the road course. Xfinity Series is going to run the road course right after him. And then you got the Brickyard on Sunday. So a bunch of IndyCar and NASCAR stuff. And one thing that I'd be intrigued to find out, it sucks not being able to be there to ask these questions, but the fans aren't there this year. And they were there last year. Are they ever going to see in person another NASCAR oval race at the Speedway? Because if the Xfinity race is a hit, do they move the Brickyard to the road course next year, which we've seen all these changes? They might. So this could be the last Brickyard on the oval. So that'll be one story that I'll be trying to chase from 35 minutes away in my home this weekend.
Well, why not? The way the racing has been at the Brickyard, it doesn't work. Doesn't work with these Cup cars, and it hasn't.
Well, they already run it. Yeah, they run it like a road course anyway, strategy-wise. So why not run the road course?
Yeah, let's try something different, because Charlotte,
Yep.
that second, that's been pretty exciting. You don't know what's going to happen sometimes at that race. So yeah, why not? Let's get that going. All right.
Or even if we have to shorten the Brickyard instead of 400 miles, do a 200-mile race on Saturday and run the road course on Sunday.
Hey,
Something
sure.
different.
Absolutely.
That could get you a double exposure at the Speedway, because Roger Penske owns it now. So we'll see. He's going to want his bang for the buck. That's for sure.
Eric, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Sounds good.